What if the roots and stones you step over every day could become the most beautiful part of your garden? In this video, I'll show you how ordinary nature can turn into extraordinary design. Ideas so simple, you'll never look at your backyard the same way again. Welcome to Simply DIY, a place where creativity meets simplicity. Here, we take forgotten materials and give them new life, transforming tiny spaces into peaceful corners of beauty and meaning. Today's video, you'll never throw away roots and stones again. Genius DIY Garden Transformations for Tiny Spaces is filled with fresh ideas to inspire your next outdoor project. All images shown are purely for inspiration, sparks of creativity to help you imagine what's possible. If something here moves you, recreate it in your own way. Use what you already have and make it yours. I may just be another voice online to you, but behind these ideas is a real story and a family that believes in small dreams with big hearts. Every like, every comment, every subscription keeps that dream alive. So if this video inspires you, stay with us. Your single click means more than you'll ever know. Thank you for being part of our story. Thank you for keeping it alive. There's something deeply calming about the way nature sculpts her own art, especially when you find a piece of root tangled perfectly, as if waiting to become part of something new. Imagine walking through your backyard one quiet morning, and there, half buried under the soil, lies an old tree root. Twisted, weathered, but beautiful. You clean it, lift it, and suddenly an idea begins to grow, a handmade table born from the earth itself. Using roots as table legs isn't just a DIY project. It's a way to bring the forest spirit into your garden. Each curve, each knot tells a story of time and rain and wind. When paired with a simple wooden plank or even a piece of recycled glass, those roots transform into living sculpture, a centerpiece that connects you to the soil beneath your feet. If you want to try it yourself, choose roots that are dry and sturdy. Wash away the dirt gently, brush them with oil or varnish to reveal their grain, and let the natural form guide your design. Don't force perfection, let the root decide how it wants to stand. That's where the beauty hides, in its imperfections. Place your table under a tree, maybe beside a few potted herbs or blooming daisies. Let the sunlight rest upon its curves. And every time you set a cup of coffee on it, you'll feel something quiet and grounding. The reminder that even discarded roots can hold up something beautiful again. This is the kind of creation that doesn't just decorate your garden. It whispers to you that creativity isn't about control, it's about listening to what nature already began. There's a quiet kind of beauty in stone, the kind that doesn't ask for attention, yet never fades away. When you sit on a bench made from the earth itself, you feel its patience, its history. Stones that once lined riverbeds or sat quietly in the forest now hold space for morning coffee, shared laughter, and moments of reflection. Imagine crafting your own garden seat from simple stones. No fancy tools, no expensive materials. Just your hands, time, and care. Choose stones that feel smooth and heavy, the kind that have lived through rain and sun. Stack them gently, not too perfect, because nature doesn't chase symmetry. A flat piece on top becomes your seat, a resting place not just for the body, but for the mind. If you have an old fence or a shady corner, let that be the start. Place your bench there, where the light filters through leaves and the sound of birds can still be heard. Add a pot of lavender beside it, or scatter a few small flowers along the edge. Over time, moss may find its way into the cracks, softening the hard edges and making it look as though it's always belonged there. Building with stone teaches patience. It reminds us that beauty doesn't have to be new. Sometimes, it's simply rediscovered. And when the sun warms your stone bench, you'll feel the reward of creating something lasting with your own hands. A seat that doesn't just decorate your garden, but becomes part of its heartbeat. When the evening quietly settles over the garden and the world slows down, there's a certain kind of magic that happens between light and shadow. In that moment, a handmade root lamp can turn an ordinary corner into something almost poetic. The twisted roots, once hidden beneath the soil, now rise with purpose, carrying light, warmth, and memory. Creating a lamp from an old tree root is simpler than it seems. You don't need to carve perfection, only to reveal what's already there. Clean the roots carefully and let them dry under the sun. Their natural shapes, the bends, the scars, the uneven lines, become part of the design. Fix a small bulb or solar light to the top, secure the base with stones, and when darkness comes, you'll see how nature and human hands can share the same language of creation. Place it beside a garden path or near your favorite chair on the patio. Let the gentle glow fall upon flowers, or dance on the surface of a stone border. Over time, moss may grow between the roots, and the light will feel softer, like it has learned to breathe with the garden. This kind of DIY isn't just about recycling wood, it's about reviving its spirit. A root that once reached deep into the earth now holds the power to brighten the night. And when you see that warm light flicker at dusk, you'll know you've built more than a lamp. You've built a story, one that glows quietly, even after the day has gone. Every garden needs boundaries, not to confine beauty, but to define it. Stones, with their quiet endurance, have always been nature's way of framing the earth's art. When placed with intention, they turn simple soil into a story of balance and care. Recycled stone borders are one of the most humble yet transformative touches you can bring to a garden. Old concrete fragments, river stones, even broken tiles, they all carry history in their surfaces. Lining them along your flower beds or pathways gives structure without stealing attention. Each irregular edge catches the light differently. Each gap becomes a home for moss or tiny wildflowers. It's in these imperfections that the garden finds its rhythm. If you're starting small, don't rush. Lay out your stones on damp soil, feel their weight in your hands, and let the pattern flow naturally. Some people polish them, others paint soft earthy tones, but sometimes the untouched color of stone after rain is all it takes to make a border feel alive. You'll notice how even a few stones can transform the space. The grass suddenly feels neater, the flowers more vibrant, the walkway more welcoming. This is the beauty of DIY that breathes, not just decorates. You don't build it once and forget. It grows with time, with weather, with patience. And when you step back to see your garden framed by stones you once thought were waste, you'll realize something deeper. Sometimes, all beauty needs is a little order and a pair of willing hands to bring it back to life. Some designs don't begin with a blueprint. They begin with a moment of discovery. A stone half buried beneath the soil, a root shaped by years of wind and rain. When brought together, they become more than materials. They become a dialogue between strength and grace, permanence and life. Root and stone furniture has a rare kind of balance. The roots carry movement, curves that echo the rhythm of growth, while the stones hold the silence of time. When you join them, you create something that looks as though it has always belonged there. A seat, a table, or even a sculptural resting spot for a cup of tea under the morning sun. Start by exploring what you already have. A root that's dry, strong, and full of character. A stone that feels solid beneath your hands. You don't need to cut or carve too much. Let nature lead the design. Try pairing a polished stone as a tabletop with a twisted root as its base. Secure them with simple brackets or eco glue. You'll be surprised how effortlessly they merge, as if the forest itself designed it for you. When you place this handmade piece in your garden, everything around it seems to pause. The plants lean softly toward it, the shadows stretch gently across its surface. Over time, moss will creep over the stone, vines may brush against the roots, and your creation will age beautifully, not worn, but wiser. This is what makes DIY so deeply satisfying. It's not just about saving money or recycling materials. It's about slowing down long enough to listen to the way the earth gives you everything you need to make beauty last. Sometimes, the simplest warmth doesn't come from the sun. It comes from something you build with your own hands. A tiny fire pit, made from stones you once thought useless, can turn even the smallest patio into a place that feels alive at night. Imagine gathering a few old stones, pieces of broken bricks, or forgotten chunks of concrete. Each one different, imperfect, yet strong. When you arrange them into a circle, you're not just building a fire pit. You're creating a space for conversation, for quiet, for stories whispered under the stars. You don't need much, a handful of stones, a patch of ground, and a little time. Stack them patiently, leaving air to breathe between the cracks. Add a small handful of wood, light it gently, and let the glow dance against the night. This kind of DIY doesn't demand perfection. The charm lies in the roughness, the uneven edges that catch the firelight, the stones that tell their own histories. You can surround your fire pit with potted herbs, a small bench, or even just two simple chairs. When the evening air cools, that warmth will draw you in, not just for heat, but for the peace it gives. And maybe that's the hidden beauty of recycling. It's not just about saving materials. It's about giving warmth another chance. A few stones reborn into something that gathers people together, something that makes your tiny backyard feel like home. Because sometimes, the smallest fire can light up the biggest part of your soul. Every garden has its rhythm. The way leaves move when the wind passes, the way footsteps sound when they touch the earth. A pathway built from small stones and gentle roots is more than just a way to walk through your garden. It's a way to feel it. Each step connects you to the ground beneath. Each stone becomes a note in nature's quiet song. Creating such a path doesn't take much, just patience and imagination. Begin with what you already have, small stones, gravel, or even pebbles collected from old planters. Arrange them loosely, not in perfect lines, but in curves that mimic the way water flows or roots grow beneath trees. Let a few natural roots remain visible. They'll add character, texture, and story to the space. If you want the path to stay neat, press the stones gently into damp soil or frame the sides with small roots or branches to keep everything in place. Don't be afraid of gaps. Let moss and grass find their way between the stones. Over time, they'll soften the path, making it feel as though it's always been there. Place your pathway where the sunlight filters softly through leaves, or where the moonlight can trace its edges at night. This kind of DIY isn't about building something grand. It's about crafting something that feels alive, something that grows and changes with the seasons. And when you finally walk barefoot along that path, you'll realize it's not just a walkway. It's a reminder that the simplest materials, arranged with care, can lead you somewhere peaceful every single day.
Some ideas begin quietly, not with grand plans or perfect symmetry, but with a single root suspended in the air, holding life in its curves. Hanging root planters are the poetry of small gardens. They float between earth and sky, turning empty walls and quiet corners into living art. The beauty of this DIY lies in how simple it is. A piece of driftwood or an old root, cleaned and hollowed just enough to cradle a small plant, becomes something extraordinary when hung with care. Use jute rope, old wires, or even recycled fabric to suspend it. The rough texture of the root contrasts beautifully with soft green leaves and tiny blossoms, creating a balance between wildness and design. If your space is small, a balcony, a narrow patio, or even a sunny kitchen window, these planters thrive where traditional pots can't. Choose plants that enjoy hanging: ivy, ferns, succulents, or orchids. They don't need much soil, just enough moisture and light to keep them alive. Mist them gently in the mornings, and watch how the water glistens on the roots before falling softly to the ground. Over time, the roots will darken, the plants will grow thicker, and each piece will tell its own story. And when the evening light touches them, they'll cast soft, organic shadows on your walls, reminding you that nature doesn't need space to bloom, only a chance. In every suspended root, there's a quiet lesson. Beauty doesn't always grow from the ground up. Sometimes, it hangs gracefully in the air, teaching us that even the smallest corner can hold something extraordinary. There's something almost spiritual about shaping art from what nature leaves behind. A root, once hidden deep in the soil, becomes a storyteller when lifted into the light. Each twist and hollow speaks of seasons past, storms weathered, rain absorbed, sunlight remembered. And in your hands, it can become something timeless, a sculpture that breathes quietly in your garden. Creating a root sculpture is less about design and more about discovery. You don't have to carve it into perfection. The form already exists. You're simply unveiling it. Begin by cleaning the root gently with a brush, removing the soil but keeping its natural lines intact. Let the shape guide you. Maybe it looks like flowing water, a reaching hand, or a small animal resting in silence. That's where its story begins. Once cleaned, let it dry completely under soft sunlight. You can coat it with oil or varnish to bring out the rich patterns within the grain. If you place it on a stone base, it will stand steady, as if the earth itself holds it in place. Add a few soft lights around it for nightfall. Not too bright, just enough to make the shadows dance. When people walk into your backyard and see it, they'll pause. Not because it's grand, but because it feels alive. It's raw, honest, and perfectly imperfect. That's what makes root sculptures so special. They remind us that beauty doesn't always come from creation. Sometimes it comes from recognition. You don't shape the root, you listen to it. And in that quiet conversation between you and nature, something truly artful takes form. When night begins to fall and the garden turns quiet, there's a kind of beauty that only light can reveal. Stones, once cold and still under the sun, begin to glow with warmth, holding tiny flames or soft bulbs within their rugged forms. A simple stone, when paired with light, can turn an ordinary corner into a moment of calm. Stone-based lighting holders are the kind of DIY project that feels almost meditative. You don't rush through it. You shape it with intention. Gather stones of different sizes,
river rocks, smooth pebbles, or even broken pieces from old paths. Stack them carefully, leaving just enough space to cradle a small candle or a solar bulb. You'll notice how the light escapes gently through the cracks, creating patterns that shimmer on the grass and dance across the leaves. What makes this project beautiful is its honesty. No two stones are alike, no two lights shine the same. Yet together, they create harmony, a rhythm of light that feels human, natural, and alive. You can place them along a pathway, near a seating area, or beside your favorite plant. They'll quietly guide your steps as the evening deepens, adding both safety and serenity to your garden. You don't need electricity or precision tools to make something this meaningful. Just patience, creativity, and the willingness to listen to what the materials want to become. And when you see that soft golden light reflecting off the stones at dusk, you'll realize, sometimes the most powerful light comes not from brightness, but from stillness. In every garden, even the smallest one, there's a need for a gentle boundary, not to keep things apart, but to frame beauty. A mini fence made from roots does just that. It doesn't shout for attention or stand tall with pride. It simply blends, becoming one with the plants, the soil, and the passing breeze. This is one of those DIY projects that reminds you how little it takes to make something truly special. A few roots, maybe branches fallen from the last rain, twisted together by hand. The goal isn't perfection, it's harmony. Choose roots that curve naturally, the kind that tell their own story through knots and bends. Tie them softly with jute or wire, and let them form an irregular rhythm, like nature herself arranged them. When you press the roots into the soil around your flowers or herbs, something beautiful happens. The plants seem to stand taller, framed by the organic lines of wood. Over time, moss will creep in, small vines will wrap around, and your fence will slowly disappear into the garden, not as decoration, but as part of its living body. You can use it to border tiny vegetable beds, a patch of wildflowers, or even a pathway leading to a quiet corner. Each glance at it reminds you of patience, of working with nature, not against it. And when the evening light hits those twisted roots, their shadows stretch gently across the ground, whispering that even the simplest materials, when touched with intention, can shape something quietly extraordinary. Every garden deserves an entrance that feels like a promise, a quiet threshold between the ordinary world and something a little more magical. A root archway does exactly that. It doesn't just frame the path, it transforms it. Each curve, each line of wood tells you softly, this is where beauty begins. Building one is far less complicated than it appears. It starts with patience and a sense of curiosity. Find two strong roots or weathered branches with natural bends, the kind that look like they've been shaped by time, not tools. Let them lean toward each other, meeting gently at the top. You can anchor their bases with stones or bury them slightly in the soil for stability. Then, weave smaller roots or vines between them, letting the pattern grow wild, like nature guiding your hands. To bring it to life, plant small climbers at the base, jasmine, ivy, or morning glory. Give them time, and soon the green will begin to embrace the wood, softening its edges. If you like, wrap a few solar fairy lights around the structure. When night falls, the archway glows faintly, welcoming you home with the warmth of memory and imagination. Over the seasons, this arch will change. Roots darken, vines grow thicker, flowers bloom and fade. And through it all, your garden will feel more alive, more personal. A doorway not just to a space, but to a feeling. Because sometimes, the most beautiful entrances aren't built to impress, they're built to invite peace in. There's something timeless about a swing. It doesn't ask for much, just a gentle breeze, a quiet corner, and a moment of stillness to feel alive again. When made from an old tree root, a swing becomes more than a seat. It becomes a story of balance between strength and grace, between childhood memories and the calm of nature. Imagine finding a thick, curved root, its surface rough yet beautifully shaped by years beneath the earth. With a little sanding, it reveals soft grains of wood that catch the light. Tie both ends with strong jute rope or recycled cord, and hang it from a sturdy branch or wooden beam. Don't worry about symmetry. Let the swing lean slightly, like it's meant to belong there. That imperfection is what gives it soul. Place it in the quietest corner of your backyard, under a tree where sunlight filters through the leaves. The sound of the ropes creaking softly, the rhythm of motion, it all feels almost meditative. You can sit there with a cup of tea, or watch your child play, or simply sway and breathe. Over time, the root will darken, polished naturally by touch and weather, blending perfectly into its surroundings. It's a reminder that the simplest materials, those we often overlook, can hold the deepest joy. An upcycled root swing teaches us that beauty doesn't have to be bought. Sometimes, it's already waiting in the earth, asking only for a pair of hands willing to give it another life. And when the breeze moves it gently, you'll realize that you haven't just built a swing. You've built a place for peace to return. There's a certain kind of peace that only the sound of water can bring, soft, rhythmic, and endlessly calming. A small stone fountain, tucked into the corner of your patio, can turn even the busiest day into something gentle. It doesn't demand attention, it hums quietly, like a breath your garden takes on your behalf. Making your own fountain is not just a project, it's an experience. Gather a few stones, they don't have to match. Let their shapes guide your design. Stack them carefully, leaving space for water to move freely between them. If you have a small pump, hide it beneath a bed of pebbles or inside a bowl. The trickle that flows down the stones doesn't need to be loud, just enough to remind you that stillness can have a sound. Add touches of life around it. A few ferns, a pot of mint, or creeping moss will make the whole space feel alive. Place the fountain where sunlight can glint off the water, catching tiny reflections that shift through the day. At night, a single candle or a soft light can make the scene feel almost sacred. This kind of DIY beauty is for those who value quiet over spectacle. It's about creating a moment, a place to breathe, to listen, to watch time slow down. When you sit beside your handmade fountain, watching water weave through stone, you'll realize you haven't just built decoration. You've built tranquility, a small reminder that peace, like water, is something we can always make with our own hands. In the quiet of the morning, when sunlight gently breaks through the leaves, there's a certain joy in seeing a small bird pause to drink or bathe. It's a moment so pure, it feels like nature itself whispering thank you. And you don't need much to invite that beauty into your garden. Just a few stones, a sturdy root, and a bit of imagination. A bird bath made from roots and stones is one of the simplest, yet most poetic, DIY creations you can build. Start with a large, shallow stone or even an old bowl with a natural texture. Let it rest securely on a base made from a thick tree root, the kind that looks as though it's grown just to hold it. The key is balance. Make sure it's stable, so that when the birds land, it doesn't move. Fill it with clean water, just enough for them to splash and sip. Surround it with life, a few wildflowers, herbs, or patches of moss. Birds love spaces that feel safe, so place the bath near some low shrubs or beneath the shade of a tree. If you keep the water fresh and the area calm, they'll return every morning, turning your garden into a small sanctuary. Over time, the root will age beautifully, the stone will darken, and the birds will trust it as their own. You'll find yourself sitting nearby, coffee in hand, listening to wings fluttering and water rippling softly. And you'll realize, you didn't just make a bird bath. You created a moment of peace that belongs equally to you and to nature.